so we can call the work session to order. Yep, I said that loud enough.
Second.
Good evening, everyone, and let's go to the, right to the agenda. And everybody's looked at the minutes, which I think were the shortest minutes on record for probably one of the shortest meetings on record, so very appropriate. May we have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Andres to approve, Mike to second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, go
I think
down
I'm
to,
abstaining, because I wasn't here last time.
Okay.
okay. Tabled. Also recommending that that be tabled again, I think.
Yeah, is there any word about where the applicant is at? Is he coming before the planning board soon?
Nothing.
Okay,
I don't think so.
okay, so
Still reworking his figures.
I'll move to table this at the request of the applicant and the planning board recommendation.
Second.
Okay, motion to table in a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yes, I am.
And Mike is abstaining. Okay. So let's see. Go to tonight's applications for clarity, I guess we'll call it. First one.
Is replace the metal shed with a wooden shed, I suppose, is a good description.
Anybody have any questions about that one? And no?
No, I mean, the one thing I was wondering is it could be a little more in compliance? Moved over,
Right,
moved over, you know, split the difference or something like that.
Yeah,
Since
it
if
seems
he's
like-
16 feet away from the end, could we go 5 feet and leave extra, you know, something like that? That's kind of what I'm gonna approach that as.
Mowing room.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough, that's typical way we handle it. That was at the bottom of the sheet. Should go second one.
It's the porch edition.
Yeah, putting on the front porch.
I did see a map which must have arrived after.
There's a map, but it's the neighbor's map. You use the neighbor's map and said, my house is
Similar?
Similar.
mine.
Wow.
Interesting.
It's kinda interesting because it
We
doesn't
didn't get
have,
a survey map
it
from
doesn't
him.
have the number, it does, 51.
Now, how's that stand? Since I know in the notes you were talking about, should we not act on it if we don't have a survey map to say specifically how far away?
Yeah, why would we do this without a,
Right.
I told,
You did a field inspection?
yeah, I told the applicant he's gonna need a survey map.
So we're tabling it then?
It's up to you.
That's what I would do.
So
well, you don't really
probably
know
two?
what, you don't know what the distance is.
Yeah, it's just an estimate. I mean, we can't really be sure.
And we've been back 4 inches on other applicants before, when we
Yeah,
were off by a little bit.
Okay. All right, but let me ask you this, Andy. Based upon your work there, are you like comfortable enough that we're within a foot, let's say, so that we can proceed with the hearing tonight and we'll explore the issues and it,
I mean,
I'm pretty comfortable.
rather than
with
not
it.
start the hearing, is what I'm saying, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I think, you know, if you've been there, which I'm assuming everybody has, you can tell just proximate relationship between house and street based on the other houses.
Yeah, that's, I think, what the theory was, using the neighbors. Okay. Number 3.
So is the procedure then that this person will still have to apply for an EPOD with our decision?
Yeah, I would say that would be, if you were to approve it, one of the conditions would be that they apply for the EPOD. Get the EPOD permit.
Okay.
and this is still a type 2 even though it's going
Yeah.
into an EPOD?
That was my other question, actually. I mean, I don't see how it could be a type 2, given where its location is.
The application that's before the zoning board is just a type 2, but
The EPOD action would be a,
that would probably be an unlisted.
But if we determine seeker, would they, I mean, we don't determine it for everyone, for them, for the EPOD.
That's right.
Okay.
It would be a uncoordinated review. But in this one, I had a question. The engineering could grant the EPOD permit?
Yes, that goes through engineering.
I just want to clarify, so we could rule on seeker for, based on the request here, it would be a type 2.
Yeah, it would
But
sta-
engineering would have to rule.
they would have to make their own secret determination.
All right,
part of the application, I don't know if it was me or there was just really poor math in there. There was one sentence where the variance is 0.003%.
Yeah, he was,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
based on the square footage or something, the total.
The acreage, square footage, okay. Number 4.
Do you have a copy of the original, the May resolution? Yes, this,
Part of the application.
I didn't see it in here.
We don't have a resolution.
It's not done yet?
And I did not go back and look at the prior meeting. I don't know if your guys,
I did.
I did.
okay, what happened
It
there?
was, my recollection was it was mentioned just once.
You typically ask that question, don't
Yeah.
you?
No, it wasn't a question. It came up when we were discussing the drainage, I think, and he volunteered it, what I saw.
And
And
what
he said
was-
something about it's only gonna be 10-foot sides and a 6-foot roof. And that was it. That was basically,
The only condition that we put on it was that engineering go out and make a recommendation, and then that would be reviewed in a year. That was the only condition
recommendation
for drainage, any drainage issues. That the engineer might say, well, you could do this and this to mitigate issues.
Do you remember the mention of the size, the height?
No,
Okay. I
specifically.
did. It was
looked-
towards the end of the presentation. There was nothing in the approval that mentioned
Right.
it specifically. But he did say, and I don't remember, nobody said, what's the height gonna be?
Right, okay.
Normally, somebody does ask that.
Yeah, yeah.
I would ask that.
Yeah.
But he said something about it. It had to do, I think, with the relationship between that and the other building. And he said it was, that the walls are gonna be about 10 feet and with a 6-foot roof.
And how about the written application or the drawings that were submitted before?
Yeah, the original drawing showed it 16 feet.
Okay, so that's certainly part of the application too, so. So what happened?
Well,
Do we know?
We approved it, but only with that
No.
condition.
No,
Oh,
I
oh,
mean,
The applicant-
after.
Sorry.
That's okay. Wasn't a really clear question, was it? Don't know. All right, we'll see. 5.
Actually, wait, I do know that the decision was they decided they wanted to put a loft on. And that's what added height. And then that's when they realized that there was a height maximum restriction of 20 feet.
Okay,
Okay.
Huh?
thank you.
Did they or didn't they before it was constructed?
When the application
we'll
came
see.
to us, there was no loft, it was one story.
So, are we good with 4 for now anyway? Okay, so 5. I just want to be clear here on, the owner of the plaza is making the request.
Yes.
And who, do we know who, and I can ask the applicant, but I just want to, do we know who will be using, if it's approved, who'll be using? Will tenants be, or will it be the owner of the plaza exclusively?
That I'm
We
not
don't know.
sure.
Okay. Okay, well, we may have to, I mean, I guess what I'm thinking is if it's each individual tenant, if it's intended that each individual tenant have the ability to use it. I don't,
Yeah, I
you know,
guess
then who's the applicant?
Right.
I want to get it right, obviously.
And the question is, whose responsibility is it to make sure that the conditions that we
Yeah,
put
that it's
on-
used properly and cleaned up and everything else okay, well, we'll fall off that bridge when we get to it. All right, and we've done the table. Anything else for clarification? Okay, so we will stand in recess for about 16 minutes and then come back for the public hearings. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Penfield Zoning Board of Appeals. Tonight's meeting will take place in two parts. The first part will be our public hearings. We'll ask the applicant to come up to that podium there, give us name and address, and then explain to the board why the relief requested should be granted. Once the applicant is done with the presentation, I'm sure the board will have some questions of the applicant, and then we'll ask anyone else that cares to come up and speak about the application to do the same thing. Come on up, give us name and address, and then talk about the application. After the public hearings are adjourned, we will take a brief recess, reconvene in the back of the room to deliberate on tonight's action and take care of any other unfinished business that the board may have. Certainly, members of the public are welcome at both the public hearings and the deliberations. But typically speaking, the deliberations are times reserved for conversation amongst board members with staff, sometimes with legal counsel. As I said, everybody's welcome to both sessions. Tonight's agenda is fairly long, I guess I'd say, relatively speaking. So if you choose not to stay, you can call staff tomorrow and find out what action, if any, the board took on a particular item. But as I said, you're welcome to stay as well. Each month we point out the effort that the town takes to make sure that neighbors are fully informed of their right to come in and speak about applications, and we're all somewhat, I'm sure, familiar with that. The town sends postcards to folks if they live within a certain geographic distance. I think it's 500 feet or somewhere thereabouts of the application, so you actually get a card notifying you. Town requires the applicant to put up a sign in front of the property so everyone can see that, posts the agenda on the website, and I ask every month, but I guess I should, I believe we post an agenda somewhere physically in this building?
Yes.
Library, maybe? Okay, all right, very good. All right, but anyway, we think it works. We welcome input, and we think it helps us do our job better. So having said that, I'd invite everyone to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good, thank you. Andy, may we have the first application, please?
Jason Long, 22 Pineview Drive, Penfield, New York, 14526. Requests an area variance to allow a shed with west side setback than permitted under section 250-5.1-F1 of the code at 22 Pineview Drive. The property is owned by Jason Long and Gisela Armbruster and is zoned R-1-15, SBL number 139.10-4-20, application number 18Z-0054.
Good evening.
Hi.
The reason why I'm asking for an area variance is because I wish to install a shed in my backyard inside of a fenced-in area that is replacing an existing structure. The variance I'm asking for is to have the shed set back from the side property line within 3 feet of the property line instead of the required 10 feet. The reason why I'm asking for that is because the current shed location is the optimal location for a shed in my yard. I have a gate that is right where the shed would be if I pulled it back from 10 feet from the side property line, making that gate inaccessible. If I went further west of that gate, then the shed would be encroaching on the usable space in the yard itself. And then the other corner of the yard it's graded in a way that would make it difficult to place the shed there. My rationale for putting it there is that the backyard is already fenced in, and that fence is just within the property boundaries. So my thinking is that placing the new shed within a 3-foot setback from the side property line would not have an impact on any of the neighbors or any town easements, because the fence is already in that on the property line.
Excellent. Can you talk a little bit about how you decided upon 3 feet versus, I think it's sitting now at about 1.5 feet? How did you pick 3 versus 5 versus off the east property line?
Sure. I wanted to have a little more room to get around the back of the shed. The current shed, even though on the survey drawings shows that there's approximately a 2-foot setback from the property line, since the fence is in a little bit more, it's actually more like a foot. So I want to get away from the fence a little bit so I can get around the shed for maintenance purposes.
Okay. One of the things that the zoning board always looks at is how do we go about, allowing a variance but the least amount, or, how can we compromise to, give the least amount of change?
Right.
Would there be an issue with going, it looked like the gate was about 16 feet. If we went 5 foot off the line, gives you about a foot difference from the edge of the gate. If the shed is 10 foot, would there be an issue with going 5 foot from the east side?
I don't think so. I think that would be fine. The only other concern I have is if I have a ramp going into the doorway of the shed, maybe that would, further encroach in front of the gate area.
Okay.
The 3 foot was a little arbitrary, I admit, but again, I wanted a little more space.
Sure, yeah.
To get
Because
around it.
one of the things we always look at is how can we bring something more into compliance? And since the existing shed is so close,
Right.
we're actually trying to bring it more into compliance. If we went 5 foot, and that would actually be a benefit to the property then, in terms of where it sits right now.
Okay.
Any type of electrical or lighting that you'll be putting out back for that?
No.
And the picture you had here of that shed, is that accurate representation of what it'll look like in terms of color, shape, size, or?
Color will be the same color as our house.
Okay, perfect. So it will not be the red one that's
Won't be
shown
the red,
in the picture?
but it will be that style
Sure,
structure.
okay, perfect. That's all I have.
Okay.
Any questions from the board? No. What are you going to be using it for?
Storage of equipment, lawnmowers, snow blower, bicycles, gardening equipment, tools.
And that's what you use the shed now for?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Anyone in the audience care to speak about this? All right, thank you, sir.
Sure. And also, I did bring my neighbor, Tom Ozenbach, to attest that he's okay with the placement of the shed as well.
Really?
So,
You
yeah.
want to come up and say that?
Good evening, I'm Tom Ossenbach. I live at 30 Pineview Drive, right adjacent to Jason, excuse me. And yeah, I have no problem with them putting the shed 3 feet from the property line. That'd be
Good.
fine with me.
All right, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Next application, Andy?
Christopher Abbey, 59 Horizon Drive, Rochester, New York, 14625. Request an area variance to allow a front porch with less front setback than permitted under Section 250-5.1-F1 of the code at 59 Horizon Drive. The property is owned by Christopher and Tammy Abbey and is zoned R-1-20, SBL number 108.20-2-58, application number 18Z-0055.
Good evening. My name is Chris Abbey. Together with my wife Tammy, we live at 59 Horizon Drive. We've lived there for approximately 10 years. House is a single-story ranch built in the late 50s. The project, a relatively small one. We're looking to add a small covered front porch to serve as an entry to the home. Porch dimensions are 8 by 12. And the request for this variance is regarding to the minimum front setback requirement for the structure. Building materials would be similar to or complement the existing structure, including roof and the trim work. Currently, the front, in the packets I sent out, passed out to you, I've got some dimensions. There's a picture of a similar porch that's what we're looking to put on there. The last page, full disclosure, that last page is not my survey map, but the survey map of my neighbor. Down in the, if you're looking in the landscape mode, down the right bottom corner, it's highlighted, that survey pin is the shared pin between our two lots. That was found from the dimension on that drawing was at 51 feet from his garage, which is right even with our house. We've also taken on the other side, on the south side, we've taken and from that same measurement, we've found the survey pin there. We've done a line, and Andy was kind enough to come out and check those dimensions. And again, it is, I understand it's not my survey map, but so.
You understand you are going to need to provide us with one before we can make a final decision, or at least put in the numbers, assuming we grant the variance?
No, I didn't understand that. So that's what I was hoping I didn't have to do, but I understand the position.
Well, and the other thing, for your benefit too, if we were to grant something at a certain dimension, when you go to sell this house, you will have to get a survey map. And if that doesn't meet with, if that map shows the variance greater than we allowed you, you could have a problem selling. So it actually protects you as well as assures that we can do a proper job. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to hear the rest of the application. We'll probably table it
Okay.
in order to give you an opportunity to give us a map,
Okay.
okay? But continue.
Well, I don't, unless you have other questions, there's probably, I mean, unless you think there's other points that we have an issue with, then I don't think I have any.
Okay, how did you come up with the 8 by 12? Why those dimensions?
It's just, it fits with the architecture of the house, I think. Looking for something just to be able to put, a couple chairs and a small table out front. And those dimensions work pretty good. The 8-foot is, the 12-foot is, of course, along the long way along the house, and the shorter distance is into the setback.
So the picture that you showed us obviously is not your house.
Which,
The proposed.
yes, yeah.
But are you going to have footers the way
Yeah.
there are here?
Yeah.
And just to see what type, they're going to be, you don't have a stone front like this, so what type of?
It's at the back, it's a sided house. It's got board and bat siding, vinyl siding on it, trimmed in, in vinyl and aluminum around the house. But do plan on having that craftsman style that you're seeing in that picture there. The posts would be trimmed out, and the roof would be very similar with an open concept roof there.
So I'm having trouble. Are the posts into that's in the front corners?
They're they're inside a little bit within a foot from the front corners in both directions, so it's a slight overhang.
Okay. Open on the sides,
Yep,
double pillars like that?
probably. That's one thing that we keep going back and forth on, but.
Oh, you want to put the photo up?
They're asking you to,
Put the photo up on
right.
the board.
Oh, sure.
All right, how is this going to tie into the walkway, or is there going to be a walkway from the driveway to the?
Currently, there is no walkway, but if you can see in this picture, we will end up doing a walkway to the driveway, just like curved walkway into the driveway.
All right, and this is going to be how high, the actual slab?
The slab is only, it's 2 risers up, so it's 16 and a half, 16 inches.
Does it have one step? 17,
yeah,
Okay.
correct.
Roofing material match the current roof?
We're going to match, yeah, at one point, we were talking about doing a metal roof, but we've gone back to matching exactly the architectural shingles on the house.
The approximate height from the peak to the ground?
Approximately 10 to 11 feet.
Okay. And that's less than the height of the peak of the house?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay. Is there any other similar structures in the neighborhood?
There is, there's a lot of, I shouldn't even say a lot. I drove around actually today, and there's certainly half a dozen porches off the front. Most of them are not covered. Some of them are large concrete slabs, but there are deck-like, pieces around as well.
I think I saw there's some walls too, like half walls or quarter walls.
There are some, yeah.
That come out the same kind of feature off the front.
Same type of thing, yeah.
So you think that this would fit in with the other houses in the neighborhood?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm hoping it actually aesthetically is, I mean, we're doing it to make it better, not anything worse.
Okay, and
Looking
those
for some curb appeal there.
posts likely to be a white or an off-white or?
Yeah, they would match the trim. It's practically white. It's white.
Yeah, okay,
Match the trim of the house that we have.
that's all I have.
Any questions?
No, not thorough.
Looking at this photo, yeah. At the points of the triangle of the roof, let's say, yeah,
Right back
are those 4x4s coming out to use this support? Yep, those 3.
Yeah, those are, but those, what you're seeing there is not structural. There'll be a beam going all the way, going back, and then it'll be wrapped, and it'll be, double 2x8s going back.
Okay, the reason that I'm asking that is I want to make sure you understand, and I don't know, and have Andy comment on, if something that high off the ground sticks out, that's the key point for us for the variance, is it not, or am I?
Well, my understanding is the setback applies to the vertical wall of
Okay,
the structure only, not any roof overhangs or anything.
okay, so that could be even closer then, all right, I'm glad I asked
I
that.
think that was my understanding as well, and I think, and I wasn't sure, the same thing with even steps, is that included too? I've got an 8 foot, but of course, we're gonna have, 2 steps there, and I think Andy helped me understand that wasn't included in that last time we
Yeah,
talked.
okay, well, and another reason for the survey, I think, and we should make sure then that the resolution is clear on that point, so that there isn't an issue in the future, if and when you go to sell the house, that there isn't a dispute
So
as to where the line starts.
So the variance then is written for a specific
Yes.
footage? It's not to accommodate a 8 by 12 platform?
Right.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Because that could be taken down and the variance would still exist. Somebody could come along 10 years later and put another structure up within that same footprint.
Sure.
That's why.
And believe me, we understand that it's gonna cost you a few bucks to get a survey.
It is,
We're not-
honestly, we'll have to just evaluate that and decide, getting the, whether that's worth it, and we probably will.
Okay. All right, any other board questions? Anyone in the audience care to speak about this? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gary Schreib, 2189 Carter Road, Fairport, New York, 14450. Request an area variance to allow a larger storage building than permitted under Section 250-5.1-F12A of the code at 2189 Carter Road. The property is owned by Gary and Judith Schreiber and is zoned RR-1, SBL number 140.02-1-25.12, application number 18Z-0056.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello, Gary Schreiber. I live at 2189 Carter Road with my wife Judy. We've been proud residents there for 26 years, and it's a beautiful piece of property. We're one of the few places where we have over 5 acres of land, and it's kind of nice to have that much room in our freedom. But along with that, there's a lot of maintenance. We have John Deere tractors, we have rider mowers, we have bush hogs, we have York rakes, and the list goes on and on. And we built a small barn about, I think, maybe 15 years ago, something like that, and it turns out that it was just too small. So we now face ourselves with, we have more lawn and garden furniture, and the furniture that we've bought, and if anybody ever looks for it, it's pretty expensive. We have the stuff that looks like wood, weighs like a brick, okay, and it costs us a couple $1,000s, and right now it's sitting outside in the snow because we are just simply out of room, okay? So that's the purpose of doing the addition and what the extra room is. In addition to that, I'm currently having a classic car done, a 57 T-Bird, and when it gets finished, I'm going to need someplace to store that during the winter time. And my wife has her summer toy, which is a small BMW, okay? So we're just simply out of room. On the addition, I want to keep it simple. It's just the reason that it's 40 feet deep is because the existing barn is 40 feet, so we can come off with the same sides off of that and come out. We're going to keep it to a single story so that we don't have to worry about, you know, being too high or whatever. The barn itself, where we want to add on to, is approximately 250 to 275 feet off the road. So it's not like it's going to be an eyesore for anybody. It's also pretty much in the center of the property, and our property is a little over 300 feet wide. So here again, we're not encroaching on any setbacks from our neighbors or setbacks from the road or any of that. So it's going to be constructed with the same materials that the existing structure is. It'll be painted the same color, which kind of matches the color of the house. And we're going to use the same shingles to do the roof on it. So there's no additional utilities going in because we already have utilities in the one structure that's there. So we don't have to run any utilities out there.
Thank you for coming out this evening. So I have a few questions.
Okay.
Is there any exterior lighting on the building?
There isn't. You know, we have one outside light that we use if we're out there at night and whatever, but it's just a spotlight, that's it. You know, like you have like a security light or something. It's just a small one, and we already have one there, so I'm not anticipating putting any more lighting up on the outside.
And do you have any, do you anticipate any drainage issues with the larger building? I know you're right up, is there a creek or a stream that runs near it?
The creek is to the south of us.
Okay.
Okay, and we're going north.
Okay.
And the existing
So you're
structure.
coming out.
Yeah, the existing structure, we have had no water problems whatsoever, okay? That part of our land, if you're familiar with that, is a gentle slope that goes all the way back, and then at the end of our property, which is 500 and some feet, I believe, there's another creek that comes out and then ends up crossing Penfield Road in that. So we're way far away from that, okay? But the particular section where the barn is and where we're going to do the addition is probably one of the most level places. So when we did the existing barn, we made certain it was up a few inches above everything, and we're going to do the same with this, because we're going to make the floors all the same in that. So from the outside, when you look at it, it'll look like it was all done at one time, and you know, so it's not going to look like a different add-on, which is another reason why we're going to use the same materials on the outside, and paint it the same color, and use the same shingles.
Thank you. So if I'm understanding correctly, then you're coming out to the north side, you're not going to be removing any trees. I know this is a
There-
woodland district.
Okay, there are 2 trees that are being removed,
Okay.
okay? And they were going to be removed anyways. They are ash trees. They're dead, okay?
Ash borer.
And one of the things we liked about the property when we bought it almost 3 decades ago was all the trees. Well, 90% of the trees on our property are ash. And we've been, and that's one of the reasons why we have so much equipment too, chainsaws and that. It was pretty well grown over, and when we had it opened up to build the house, I was told that we could expect 20, 25 years out of the trees because they were what they called woods trees. No branches on the bottom, just branches on the top. And they've flourished and they've been really good, but the last couple of years, we're finding that we have things like ants getting in it and the ash borer that's here. So those trees have to go anyways.
So, you know, I know you have a 3-car garage, right?
Yes.
And you have a pretty large shed, that's 1,200 square feet, which is really pretty decent size. And do you feel like you could, how did you come up with the 2,400 square foot
Well,
addition?
Well, it's 2,000, not 2,400.
Okay.
Okay? What I did is I looked at what's it going to take to park the 2 cars we have. Right now, which I just took a picture this morning, you can see that our lawn and garden furniture is up by the pool getting snowed on, so I don't know how it's going to end up at the end of the winter. My tractor still sits outside, and it's so.
And there's no more room in your garage?
Yeah. No, the garage is full. I have a work truck, I have a regular truck, and my wife has her car.
Okay. Do you have, other than storage, do you have any other uses planned for the shed?
I mean, like,
You're not going to use it for any kind of commercial
oh,
outlet?
absolutely not. No.
And you would be okay with a condition on, if that was granted, the
Oh,
variance
that
was
I'll never
granted?
do commercial? Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay. What is the smallest amount? We try to grant the smallest amount of variance needed. So you feel like you need all 2,000 square feet? Could you go smaller?
Originally, when I was first mapping this out, I was looking at going 25 to 2,600 square feet, and I brought it back to the 2,000, okay? Because of the fact that when I was looking at all the stuff that we currently have, okay, that I can't even get in there, and on top of it, the other cars that we're going to have.
So you absolutely need the 774
It's about
square
700 feet, which is 0.003% over what the limit is, or what the regular stuff is. And we have 243,000 square feet of property.
Right.
So we're asking for 700 additional feet for,
And there's no living space in there?
oh, no, no.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
The addition you have, it looks like from your drawings, the proposed addition will have a lower roof line than the existing barn?
Yes, because the existing barn is 40 feet on the front and, I'm sorry, 30 feet on the front and 40 feet deep, but it's 2 stories,
Okay.
okay? So it's got a regular barn-type roof.
Yep.
The other one is going to come into it on the side, and we designed it so that that roof line stays lower than what the existing roof is.
Okay.
But we'll tie in real close to where the last bend is, so it looks like it's a natural thing, so we won't have a problem with snow and stuff and getting up in there.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to point out for the record, according to my calculations, you're allowed 2,430 square feet. You want something that's 770 square feet higher. That's about a 30% increase, which I'd say is significant. It doesn't go on the amount of square footage of your lot. It goes
Okay, I
on-
was just looking at the square footage of the lot for what it is.
But that square footage of the lot's taken into account in coming up with the
Okay.
2,430.
You know, and I understand that there's rules, but in our case, we're on 5.5 acres. We're not in a small thing, and we're in the middle of the property, which, you know, is not going to affect anybody. I've checked with all of my neighbors around me. Nobody has a problem. In fact, actually, one of my neighbors, I heard earlier that you sent something out to people that were within 500 feet. He's actually the only one within 500 feet.
Yeah, he nodded when I said that. He just in fact pulled the
You
postcard
know,
out.
so we're not even
Right,
close
and
to.
I'm not arguing that those things aren't relevant. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, you brought up the math. And,
Yeah, well, I'm looking at the total size. I didn't realize, yeah, if you're looking at the other,
No,
yeah.
the variance
That's
is,
really what we go by.
Oh,
right.
okay.
That's all.
So how far, and I'm looking at this photo, about how far is the structure from, let's say, the back edge of your pool, the concrete area? 150 feet, maybe? You want to pull it up? You
Yeah.
can, if that would help you.
Yeah,
Okay,
probably
I'm look-
150 feet.
If your lot is 300 feet wide, 150 seems like a, so.
Yeah.
And again, just a ballpark, how far would you say the proposed addition is, and the whole structure, from each of your next-door neighbors' houses? I'm just trying to get an idea of what they would see.
The neighbor to my north.
500 feet, 500?
Yeah, the neighbor to my north, or to my south, the neighbor to my south wouldn't change because we're not adding on to that side, okay?
Okay.
And I would estimate 500 to 600 feet from him. My neighbor to the north is probably within 50 to 100 feet less than that. I mean, it's,
That's what it sort of looks like.
because his house sits further closer to the road than ours does.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a 60, about a 60 or 70 foot setback that we have, so that's right off the bat, and then the house and everything, and then the extra behind it, plus he's off on his lot. So,
And any of the trees that you described as either coming down or dying, do any of those trees provide a buffer for the view from, for your neighbors?
oh, no,
Okay.
No.
So we don't have to worry about any current buffer being lost?
no,
All right.
no, at least not until some of the trees die.
Yeah. Okay.
And they have been dying, unfortunately.
Any other thing, anything else from the board?
So you're going to have to go, if this variance is approved, you'll then have to apply for a permit, an EPOD permit, because it's a woodlands district?
I'm sorry, have to do what?
So Andy, can you explain that he's in a woodland protection overlay district?
Right, it's actually within a woodland environmental protection overlay district. So what that means is, per code, when you're proposing any type of construction within that protected area, you have to obtain an EPOD permit from our engineering department. They have to
Okay.
review it to ensure that what you're doing is not going to have any significant negative impact on the woodland area.
Okay. Is that something new? Because we didn't have to do that before.
No, it's not. It's been in place for quite some time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why
Yeah,
you
we
didn't have to
didn't,
do
we
it
didn't, I
before.
mean, we had a permit, and they came out and inspected everything, and, you know, as far as that part goes, but, yeah, we didn't have to do, and I don't have a problem with that, whatever it takes to get the permit, because where it is, there's actually, there's still a few trees around, that's going to be around the barn, okay, that will still be there. It's just that these two that are dead are right there in the path of where it would be concrete floor now.
Good.
Well, so if we said, you know, again, going back to what's the minimum variance that you could have, even 500 instead of 774 square feet, and we said, well, you could have an additional 500 square feet, that wouldn't even be enough.
No, 500, yeah.
Really?
And the cost of putting on this addition versus scaling it back, I mean, you're paying so much more per foot to do it. I mean, it gets to the point where, you know, let's just add 10 feet to it. Well, wouldn't make a lot of sense to, you know. This that I'm looking at is, I won't have to ever come back here again and ask for another variance to have
Okay,
more building.
thank you.
All right, anyone in the audience? Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Matt Seversky. I live at 2185 Carter Road, which is the neighbor to the north. The way this shed is located from our house, you can, in the summertime, you cannot see it at all. In the wintertime, you can barely see it if you really look. There's lots of trees between our house and theirs that are farther away from the shed, so any changes he makes in the trees around the shed won't matter from our view. He can make it 4 times as big as it is now, and we wouldn't notice. So there's no qualms on our side at all, anything he wants to do with the size. It won't affect our property at all.
Great. Any
Thank
questions?
you.
And this is probably more visible from your property than from the adjoining property
Confirmed,
to the
yes.
south.
Yes. We're set, as Gary described, our house is a little higher than theirs and set closer to the road. So when we look out our back windows, we have that view down and this little bit of a slope down. So we can see that area, except there's so much foliage and trees and everything that, and it's so far away from us, I would say it's 600 feet at least. It's way back there. That, no, the wintertime you can't see it. It's, and now, agreed, we were more visible than any other neighbor would be.
Okay. And, yeah, thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience?
Oh, can I say one more thing? I'm sorry. I just want, they didn't ask us to come. We got the card, and we just came, not even knowing that's how big they want to do, what they wanted to do, because we knew they were going to be doing things, and it was fine with us. But it's not like he asked us to come and testify. We did this on our own.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Stephen Hake, 1235 Northrop Road, Penfield, New York, 14526. Requests an area variance to allow an accessory building with greater height than permitted under section 250-5.1-F-12C of the code at 1235 Northrop Road. The property is owned by Stephen and Helen Hake and is zoned RA-2, SBL number 110.01-1-5.3, application number 18Z-0057.
Good evening, folks. Just get a couple pictures up here for you.
Use the clips on top?
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, perfect.
Folks, you may remember, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to state my case tonight for a variance. You may remember back in May, I came to see you. I wanted to put up a pole barn in my property at 1235 Northrop Road, and my issue back then was the setback off the fence. This was the look I had back then. I had my existing 15 by 20 shed that I had built 19 years ago. I had this canvas thing I wanted to get rid of. Trailer right now is storage, and I wanted to put my barn starting at the halfway point and going behind it, a 30 by 30 pole barn. And I wanted to keep it in the traditional look of a barn. As you can see, the one thing I wanted to do was re-side my existing barn with a natural wood board and batten, new overhead door, and I wanted to side the new barn in the exact same thing, slightly larger door, identical door. Back when I started this whole process, early on, if you take a look at sheet number 1, when I started looking into this, and I copied my original sheet with the highlight I had done, and I had seen maximum height limitations, 2 stories or 35 foot. As I worked down, that's when I found the 1% of my gross property, which I'm actually smaller than that. And then I found the 50-foot setback. And that's kind of where I stopped, because that was the thing I had to address. I never realized at the time that we had a 20-foot total height measurement. I always wanted the first floor to be a 10-foot height, which matches my garage, my normal garage in the house. And I wanted an 8-foot overhead door here. And I would need a 10-foot height to give me for the rails for the 8-foot door. This was originally supposed to be started back in late July into August, but it got delayed. In the meantime, I had a couple people suggest if you're doing a gambrel roof and a barn style, I should do a second floor loft. So I talked to my contractor and said, let's figure a loft area up there. I'll have a nice full set of stairs going up to it. But what that inadvertently did was pushed me up about 1.5 feet higher than what I now know is the 20-foot limitation. I would have much rather addressed this. When I originally brought my paperwork in for my building permit, and I asked my contractor for what I needed to receive that, I brought in the footing details, and I brought in the truss details of the trusses we used. But I never, when I originally made the rendering for you back in May, I never put any heights on it. It wasn't to scale. I have, if you look at sheet number 2, I have an accurate rendering of what it is now, just to show you what the total finish is going to look like. I intend on putting some fake imitation, like hayloft doors up on top. The whole thing's going to be sided identical to this, the same lights. Both roofs are going to be done in a burgundy metal to match, so it'll all look like one nice structure when I'm done. It's going to be a very attractive structure, but again, inadvertently, I did go over by 1.5 feet the height that I did not realize at the time was a maximum of 20 feet. I do have some pictures, some close-ups of what, just to give you an idea how nice this is going to look when it's finished and what I started from. I do have a close-up of my small barn that I finished siding this summer with the new lights, the new overhead door, and it's going to be a very attractive structure. And it does set 330 feet off the road. And I've got a few miscellaneous pictures in there. One is a shot I took last winter of the front of my house with my normal every night lights on, just to show you that I've got a very attractive property, and I do my best to keep it that way.
Yeah, I think you made that clear in May. I don't think anyone doubts that. I will tell you, I'm concerned how given the fact, frankly, that you were so conscientious before about the detail, I'm concerned how we got where we are today, to be honest with you. And once you made the decision to put in the loft, and you've said a couple of times inadvertent. I don't think there's anything inadvertent about the height. You just did not realize the restriction.
Yes, exactly. I did not realize the restriction in the beginning.
It's not as if the height was incorrectly built.
No.
So from the beginning, it was intended that it was going to be 21.5 or 22 feet, whatever it is.
Actually, in the beginning, I didn't have any idea how tall.
Well, I'm sorry, once you made the decision to put a loft in.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
it was going to be the
I'm
height.
assuming that raised it up. After the fact, the more I've given this thought after the fact, I honestly don't think it would have been much lower without the loft. I think this would have just been wasted space, because when I thought about it, the height is kind of dictated by the 30-foot width, because these are normally 22.5 degree angles. These are normally 45 degree angles. if you'd tried to lower that center, it would have spread that out. I think it would have not looked very symmetrical, and it definitely wouldn't have matched this if I'd have tried to get it down.
Okay. And do you recall that in the first application, both in your written application and at the hearing, you said that the height was going to be 16 feet? Do you remember that?
You know what? If I did, it was a guess.
Okay.
I know in the beginning, I told my contractor I wanted to stick with 10 foot I needed for the first floor.
Yeah.
And then I think early on, I was almost thinking of a gable, 6, 8 foot, but not realizing that a gambrel kind of dictated the height because of the width. I didn't give any thought to height in the beginning, because I didn't think I needed to.
Well, but you put the height in your application, right? I mean, somewhere in your written application in May, it said 16 feet height.
It may have, and it may have been a guess back then. It was, because I didn't have actually anything detailed, other than the fact that I was doing a 30 by 30, and my lot line setback. Those are the only concern numbers I had. I really
Yeah.
never gave any thought to the height.
Right, right. Okay. Although, again, it was in the application, so there had to be some decision made about
Yeah.
what number to put in there for the height.
Yeah.
Now, maybe you didn't think that the height was going to be an issue, and you weren't quite sure it was going to be 16.
I didn't know. If I'd have thought it would have been an issue, I'd have addressed it earlier.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the height got away from me, because I didn't pay any attention. I said, okay, let's do, loft trusses, and those obviously pushed me up a little bit higher, but I'm not so sure that without the loft trusses, I would have been much lower, because just the fact that it has to kind of stay symmetrical with the width.
So by that, do you mean that even if you hadn't made the decision about the loft, you think it would still be the same height it is now?
Yes, well, or close, because I always wanted gambrel roof. I always wanted the traditional barn look, so it matched this. And even if you think about trying to push this down, it would push those angles out.
No, I get that. I
Yeah.
get that. So, when you make the decision to add the loft, you didn't contact the town about, hey, the plans have changed a little bit, I need you to come out, I need to make sure this is okay?
I submitted the loft trusses back then.
Okay.
And so we had that, but there was never anything saying how tall the height was. The trusses are the same ones I submitted for the permit.
Okay. And at what point during the construction did you discover that it was higher than the code allowed?
The day after the trusses went up, and I have a neighbor that keeps an eye on everything I do, I'm assuming went over and measured it and went to see Andy at the town. And then Andy called me and I said, I'm thinking around 21 feet. And that's how it started.
Okay. Have you done any further construction on it since realizing the error?
Well, after that, I had to get the roof. They were ready to put the roof on the next day, so I had to continue and get the roof on. As it was, the trusses sat in my yard for 3 weeks. I was starting to get really nervous at how much weather was getting to everything. So yeah, it's been roofed in the meantime.
Okay, and what would be your intent if this variance, in regard to the building, if the variance were denied? What would you do?
SOL.
Well, I mean, I know what that stands for.
Yeah.
But what is it, what would you do? Would you take it down?
I don't have an alternative. It's built extremely sturdy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't have much alternative. I mean, I'm being honest, is how this came about.
Yeah,
And in my mind, it comes out to approximately 7% higher than it should be.
I have to tell you, if we had addressed this issue in May,
I know.
probably wouldn't be here. But you have brought up the point that you have a neighbor that was vehemently opposed to the application in May and is vehemently opposed to the application tonight. That's no secret. And it's so, I'm not trying to torture you, but I do want you to know that this board is in more than a little bit of a predicament, frankly, because you didn't do your due diligence.
I know.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just, visibility was definitely an issue when you brought this up because of the neighbor, and there was no way that you represented to us that this new building was going to be higher than the old building. It just wasn't the case.
My original rendering showed it higher, but not to scale. No, I never did the height to scale.
But you were talking 16 feet, and you clearly said it. I went back and looked at the hearing. You said 10-foot-high walls and a 6-foot-high roof.
Then I never looked into what the actual trusses would be for a gambrel roof at that point. My only concern was my variance setback off the lot line. That was my whole focus back then. And in
Still,
hindsight, yeah, I wish I'd have made an actual to-scale drawing to submit to Andy so we had the height, so we could have addressed this back then.
the problem I have is this is a different application than what you gave us and what we approved, by far.
Well, back then, we were just approving the setback.
Yeah, but we were approving the setback based on the size and the height of the building.
Yeah, see, in
What we
height,
have now is not the same as what we approved.
only by height. It's still 30 by 30. It's still literally, nobody can see it from anywhere, but one neighbor on this side threw a gap in his trees. It's a solid wall of trees, this entire thing. There's one gap, and this neighbor,
It's a different application. You
I
put a
know.
loft in. By your own admission, it's a different application. And the size-wise is different. That's significantly different. 16 feet, and what's the total, 21? Is another third higher than what we were looking at, or thought we were looking at.
see, and I never gave any thought to height because, like I say, originally, I was thrown by the 30-foot max height, so I didn't think height would be an issue as long as the whole thing was proportionate.
Did your contractor ever mention the height, a concern about height?
Pardon me?
Your contractor?
No. The permitting was kind of on me, other than him getting me the truss detail and the footer details to submit to Andy.
I just was thinking contractors are usually familiar with the town codes.
He's a Mennonite contractor that builds mainly pole barns out of Wolcott. Does an awesome job, but I think paperwork-wise and code-wise, he's probably not exactly, your normal contractor.
Thank you.
Do you have any idea what it would cost you to take the structure down and build one that's compliant with the height?
Probably as much as I've got into that now.
Well, and that's how much?
When I get all done, probably 20,000. And if I had to go to that point, I wouldn't be able to afford to put it back up.
Hey, Andy, I have a question for you. In the code section that he highlighted here, when he talked about, this section refers to accessory tool gardens, utility sheds, or storage buildings shall be sized according. At what point is it a storage building versus a shed? Because in 12C, it says sheds have a maximum height of 20 feet versus a building. At what point do we say this is large enough where it's not a shed anymore, or versus, either way? I guess I'm looking for a little clarification on where we say it's a building versus a shed.
Look at the start of number 12.
Correct, right, but, so that calls out a permitted accessory tool, garden, or utility shed or storage building shall be sized according. Then down below, it gives, the sizes, but then it says sheds shall have a maximum, it calls out sheds specifically, shall have a maximum height of 20 feet.
It is
So
a
I'm
touch
just asking,
ambiguous.
so that's why I'm just asking in terms of where do we draw the line between a shed and a storage building does that fall under this 20-foot or does it not?
And I don't know if either of those terms have definitions elsewhere in the code.
I don't think so. My understanding is that 12C, when they're referring to sheds, it's actually intended to encompass all of those types of buildings.
Well, and B specifically calls out storage buildings. Which has a different, does that have a different, that storage building, as that's used, have a different setback than a shed?
They're not mutually
No, we
exclusive.
would
They're
consider
talking about-
all those to be the same, whether it's a tool, garden, utility shed, or storage building. We would apply the same requirements to all of them.
Okay. Well, we may have to talk more about that. Any other questions from the board? Anyone in the audience care to speak about this? You want to? Were you nodding? Okay, no. I saw you nodding, or I thought you were nodding. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, come on up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Ken Hill. I live at 1239 Northrop Road, 2 doors to the east from Mr. Hake. And I guess I just want to say that I know his property is always meticulously cared for, mowing, beautiful, and he wants to get his tools and everything out of the way. This is how the structure came to be to begin with. And already I can see that it looks better, you know, than that old canvas thing he had. And already I can see it's well-built, and it's going to be nicely manicured, and I just think it's going to fit better in the neighborhood than what he had before. I think it's unfortunate about the height thing. I don't know how that happened, but it would be just a shame to have to turn back now. And I also have to say, what this really comes down to is a neighbor thing. There's a neighbor in between us both who, it doesn't matter what you do, he's going to go against it because we've not gotten along for 20-something years. And, you know, he calls the cops on us. He calls the town on us. He calls the pound on us. It's just a never-ending battle with this particular neighbor. And it really should be a structure thing, but it's not. This is really a neighbor thing. This would have never happened if it wasn't for this very, very difficult neighbor. And I just feel like I have to get that off my chest because I feel bad for Mr. Hake for what he's going to go through. And I think it's a nice-looking structure. I really do. And we could nitpick and point fingers about things on this person's property. I don't think we want to go there. I think his property is meticulous. I think the barn looks fantastic. It's well-built. So I have to say, I don't have a problem with it. And it would be just an absolute shame to turn back. Even though it may have been Steve's fault or a contractor's fault, it would be just a shame to turn back on that now, and I would feel very bad for him. It's a nice-looking structure.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone agrees with that. I don't think there's any doubt, so. Any questions? No? All right, thanks for coming in. It's, and I'm sure, honestly, what you said probably wasn't all that easy for you to say. No, I know.
I'm trembling. I don't like doing this kind of stuff, but after 20 years of battles and phone calls, look at the records.
Yeah.
And you'll see how many times, you know, I have two kids, they're now doctors, okay? I think I'm a respectable community citizen. My God, they called the cops on us no less than a dozen times in the past 10 years, okay? So we really need to put things in perspective. That's what this is all about. It's a neighbor problem, not a structure problem, in my opinion.
All right, thank you. Anyone else care to speak about this application? All right, thank you very much. Number 5, please.
Paul Colucci, DeMarco Baytown Associates, LLC, 1950 Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road, Rochester, New York, 14623. Requests a conditional use permit under section 250-5.7-C ILK.
Every letter.
And section 250-
I've been working hard all day, all night, and you gotta tweak them like that, Paul?
He wrote it out.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Section 250-13.3 of the code to allow outdoor community events at 1970 Empire Boulevard. The property is owned by DeMarco Family Empire LLC and is zoned general business. SBL number 093.02-1-13.1, application number 18Z-0053.
Hi, good evening. Paul Colucci with the DeMarco Group, here tonight on behalf of the applicant, DeMarco Baytown Associates. Joining me is Alan Rainbow, our commercial property manager, and Howie Jacobson, who's a consultant who works with us on public relations for our commercial properties. As Andy read into the role, we're here tonight to seek conditional use permit approval for the ability to host outdoor events at a portion of the plaza that we're calling Brant Point Park. I believe we've alluded to this before in previous applications with this board and with the planning board. When we did the Baytown approvals and the expansion of the plaza, it was always envisioned that this area in the center of what we've always called the developer parcel, we created a green space of approximately half an acre to host community-minded outdoor events. The plan that we have before us, and what I'm going to allow Howie to expand upon, is to host these events on a seasonal basis from May 1st through October 31st in a area confined to what we are calling Brant Point Park. It's that green area just south of the U of R Medical Building and just north of what we've always referred to as the Street of Shops. We are completing some site work around this currently to finish off the parking and the pedestrian connectivity from the northern limits of the property into the Street of Shops. And the application would include the installation of a tent that would go up on a seasonal basis, 40-foot by 80-foot tent. And we would be able to utilize the existing plaza drives and parking field to support the events. The schedule of events is what Howie's going to share with us. We've put a lot of these pieces into place to support this, and we're looking forward to being able to roll this out next year. We've had meetings with staff at the town regarding the collaboration between ourselves and the events we would host for our tenants and the plaza, and events that could be civic-minded in town initiatives. So with that, I'm going to let Howie come up and run through a little bit of the schedule of events that we envision.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you for having me present.
Where are the snakeskin boots?
Oh, I have them,
Can't see
but I
it.
have covers on them.
Oh,
Snowing out there.
You know, it's snowing.
okay, I would have been
Thanks for
disappointed.
remembering. Don't worry, I don't want you to be disappointed. So this is a picture, a rendering of what this property would look like with a tent, 40
Sir,
by 80.
excuse me, could you state your name again? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Howie Jacobson.
Thank you.
So this, to me, will be really a new Penfield asset. We plan on doing a number of events here to benefit the community of Penfield and the surrounding communities. One of the things we plan on doing is, most likely it'll be on Wednesdays, we're going to have a farmer's market and crafts market, May 1st through the end of October. The tent will be put up, it'll be up the whole season. It'll go up the last couple days of April, and it'll come down the first couple days of November. It'll allow us to do a number of things under the tent, so we won't be weather constricted, which is one of the things we're trying to protect. I've been meeting with a lot of the vendors, both agricultural and crafts, in various farmers markets around the area. They're very excited to come to Penfield because there really is no permanent home for a farmers market, crafts market in the town of Penfield on a regular basis. So this will be the new hub. We will have baked goods, we'll have agricultural items. Obviously, in May, there isn't a lot of homegrown produce, but there are plenty of artisan chefs and cooks that want to come and sell their wares. We also have a very vibrant wine and craft beer industry that wants to come and taste. There will be no consumption on site, but they can taste. They have their permits based on New York State law for craft wineries and breweries. So, and if whatever permits they need, they will have with them. And so we know this can be fairly vibrant. My plan is we'll probably have 25 to 30 vendors at any one time, which the tent will be quite adequate for. We will plan on having a duo, maybe 2 acoustic guitars that'll play during this time period. It'll be 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock for the farmers market, crafts market, most likely on Wednesdays. We don't want to create a problem with the town of Brighton, the town of many of the towns that have farmers markets. So Wednesday seems to be a consensus of a lot of the vendors they would come. Possibly having food trucks in the parking lot, and again, some light music just to have some entertainment for this group. And to enhance the rest of the week and the rest of the time period the tent will be up, there'll be many activities and events that we will coordinate with the Chamber of Commerce, with the town of Penfield. I've already talked to Phyllis Ely and is it Chris Bilo? I've met with them at the rec center to be able to see how we can coordinate together to bring the community's events here. So there'll be arts and crafts days, there'll be local school jazz bands can play here. We'll meet with the school district and see when they would like to do things. I know in Fairport, they use one of our plazas for a 2-week-long art fair. They have over 1,000 students put up their art inside Parrington Square Mall, and it's really a benefit for the school district. So we'll try to coordinate that. There could be morning yoga. There could be family game day, seniors day. A lot of seasonal events, Harvest Festival, pumpkin carving, recycling day. I did talk to the town about doing a safety day with police and fire. Recycling is an alternate site. I know sometimes they're here, but it may end up being over there as well. Antique auto shows, and partnering with not-for-profits that want to use this site because the tent will be up. We do plan on twice a month doing movie night. We had a test this year. We did 3 movie nights. We learned a lot. Number one, we learned we needed a tent because in the summer you have a problem with the sun. You can't start a movie until 9:15, 9:30, and that's not family movie time. The kids are going to go to bed. So we know now we can, with the tent, we can start a movie.
By the way, some adults are sleeping at 9:30.
Well, that's very true. It's after my curfew. So you have the ability, we have the ability to start a movie at 7:30, which means we can have family movie nights. And most, what I mean by family movie nights, people would bring their kids 3 to 10. We're planning on family movies. This is not going to be a kind of a hangout. And if we start at 7:30, we can be done by 10 o'clock, which is great. We can put the screen inside the tent. We're going to be getting a screen that'll fit right inside the tent, so if it does rain, there's no issue. So that's very good. The movies will be free. We will ask people to make a donation of $1 up to $5 a family, and we will make a donation to local charities, which is what we did this year. And that was very well received. Our staff will supervise, so there'll always be somebody on site, and we would plan on any events that we have would be over by 10 o'clock. Would meet the sound and noise and the light variances that you have. We have a lot of opportunity for events. Obviously, we have May 1st through the end of October. Any music that we have would be not really a band. We would have a trio or a duo or a trio just to provide light music. So we'd be very conscious of sound ordinances. I think somebody asked a question of me the other day that, well, what if the Rolling Stones want to play? We will come back to this board for a permit. We do not plan on any weddings or renting the space out for business or personal use for parties. If that does arise, they'll have to come to the town for a permit. We're not really interested in having that happen this year. We want to get a lay of the land of how this works for events that we're doing. We do anticipate some of our plaza merchants possibly wanting to have an anniversary celebration over there, and if we need permits or anything for that, we'll come and get the proper permits, like we've done at Baytown for other events for the merchants. So the goal really is to have this be a very community-centered space, and with all the growth and activity at Baytown Plaza at the time, couldn't be better. So if you have any questions for me, and
This all sounds great, but it also sounds like it's, if it goes as you anticipate, a pretty intense use of space that frankly, right now, I don't even know if it is being used. It's green space.
it's green space that was used for the movies. I mean, intensity, you can probably plan on, I would say, 2 to 3 days a week, as far as intensity.
Well, okay, that's pretty intense. So a couple of issues. Parking. If an event is as successful as you hope, is there going to be sufficient parking in that area?
The answer is yes. There's a lot of parking there, plus,
You were standing up, Paul. No, I mean, he stood up. That's not because I found your answer unacceptable, but,
Yeah, this portion of the plaza in particular parks at 12 per thousand, which is much higher than what the commercial standard is. As you recall, we had a variance granted for the Walmart parcel, and then we had a variance granted for the Baytown parcel for below what at the time was 5.4 per thousand. This parks at 12 per thousand in this area. And of course, we don't have the buildings that would soon be constructed east and west of this constructed at this time. So for the immediate foreseeable future where we have this rolling out next year, we have zero issues with parking.
okay.
When we do build buildings and we do have tenants that are occupying those buildings, we intend to continue this because this is the type of activity that brings people that are cross-shopping, that are coming not only just for this
Yeah.
event, but they're also going to the different stores. So this has always been envisioned here, and that's why we parked the developer parcel, so to speak, at such a high ratio.
Okay. Who would control who would make a decision as to whether a particular event is allowed? You said not-for-profit. Somebody comes and says, hey, I want to use your tent 2 Wednesdays from now. Who says yes or no to that, as contemplated now?
we have the DeMarco team, so we have a couple people, including myself, that will look at people's proposals, what they want to do, and we'll make a decision if it fits what we're trying to accomplish there. Is it community-oriented? What are you trying to accomplish? So that'll be the process.
Okay.
Talking about that, would all of your events be open to the public, or would you have private events? Seeing that it's, a community-minded thing, would it always be public events that anyone could attend, or you're looking that you would have, some events wouldn't necessarily be open to anybody?
What we're planning on right now is it's a community event. If in fact somebody wanted to have a wedding or a company party, we're not planning on doing that this year. That's just not what we want to get into. So your answer is quite direct. They're community events, open to the public.
Okay.
Another little aspect of that is legal responsibility. As a lawyer, that pops into my head fairly quickly. Is DeMarco Baytown Associates LLC legally responsible for what happens there? Or is
Yes.
it another company that's a
Nope.
subsidiary?
It would be through DeMarco Baytown Associates, and our insurances would cover, just as we invite the public into our plazas on a regular basis, the general liability insurance is covering.
It'd be similar to what was there already if you didn't have it there, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so perhaps a condition of any approval would be that the owner obtain appropriate insurance to cover liability for these events as well, or confirm that you currently have that.
Yep.
All right. You guys know that I live not far from the plaza.
Yep.
And on clear, nice nights, I'm occasionally able to hear the Little League games all the way down Empire at the field. And it's a pleasant noise because it's people having fun. And the same thing is true with when Wegmans Eastway has the antique cars. Nothing that's, to me anyway, disturbing in the least, but I can hear it. So you mentioned acoustic guitars, and you said there aren't going to be any bands, but you mentioned then a jazz band, high school jazz band.
Well, the high school jazz band, my experience with that is that they may want to come on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay, so the answer is yes. If you said, no, you don't want the high school jazz bands to come, then, you know.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine that we would ever say that. But I guess my concern is, what are we going to do to make sure that the noise is just not out of hand?
Well,
Time limits, you said 8 o'clock, I think, that it would end at. Right, is that what did you say that?
No, it's a 10.
10, okay.
Yeah, right now, we structured it to comply with the town noise ordinance, so that any type of activity that is within this, this outdoor event area would be over prior to the limit of when we would be under obligation
Okay,
to reduce noise levels.
that's good. And you've expressed an intent to have this tent for the foreseeable future. But I'm wondering whether we should put, and maybe it's more a board discussion, but put more of a time limit on it. We'll give you a 1-year trial period, 2-year trial period, it may work out great with no issues, and then come back and take that restriction off. Or it may be something you decide you don't want to do. Or that there are problems that none of us, for whatever reason, were able to foresee.
Yeah, I don't think we would have any issue with that, with having a limitation on the duration of when this conditional permit, how long it's valid for.
Starts in a-
One season, to me, might be too limiting, because, as Howie mentioned, we're going to learn things.
Sure.
And we're going to learn things together. And we want to be good, community-minded developers, and we want to be good neighbors.
And I want you to be aware, if we do something like that, I don't know if you would anticipate any substantial capital expenditures in order to do this, that if you were limited to a year and things didn't work out, but I appreciate you agreeing to that.
I like the idea of at least 2 years,
Okay.
mainly because it's a small community. I wouldn't want the vendors to think this is like a one-time concept,
Okay, that's fair.
because I really want them to feel committed. And I will tell you that the enthusiasm to come to Penfield has been quite interesting, because there isn't anything really over this way that's regular and programmed and going to be run really well. So we have an awful lot of people that have said, we'll come, and we'll try it because we know there's a good audience here. So,
I also want to clarify, in your application, said 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. weekdays, which I take that as Monday through Friday, and then weekends, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., Saturday and Sunday? Is that?
I think that's reasonable. And that's, we were looking at timing it so the farmer's market is not going to go to 10 p.m. and a weekday event.
The only
would
thing I'm
only be-
thinking is Friday nights
Friday
are a
night of the
weekday,
weekend.
Or often would be still
he's
a
getting
10
at.
p.m. night, and usually a Sunday wouldn't be, for
Right.
most people's situations, but your application doesn't ask for that. So that's why I just want to get a little clarification on what you guys really are looking for, to make sure we're correct.
Yeah, so if you were to restrict it, you make a good point. We probably would consider the weekend to be Friday, Saturday, and then weekday would be Sunday to Thursday.
Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Is this
fire
going
away.
to, is this going to require any additional signage that you anticipate? That's not covered by the signage
Wow.
packet? In other words, are you going to be back for?
See, what goes around
permit
comes
for
around, Paul.
signage?
We will have a sign on the tent itself, just identifying Brant Point Park and that it is an event space. We haven't developed that yet. We also have the opportunity, as you know, on the recent signs that have been approved to incorporate some signage that could be denoted or be devoted to this on those.
And you think that the sign on the tent, you can put in an area where it'd be sufficient, given you're going to add buildings to the, right, between that and Empire and?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, the goal is to bring people into the heart of the plaza. The perimeter signage that we've received the variances for accomplish that. And then we will have some signage on the tent and around the Brant Point Park area.
Are you going to have any portable heaters in there?
Not anticipating anything at this time.
Okay.
Seasonal is why we're saying May 1st through October 31st.
Okay. And then when the tent is not in use, how does it, you don't want people walking through there, I would think. Like, how is it going to be secured?
Sure. Obviously, we will maintain, we have commercial property and maintenance personnel that are on the site daily. If there are sides, they would be rolled up because we want the sun and light to get in there so the grass doesn't become dead. There won't be anything other than the tent posts and the tent roof when it's not in use. Everything that would go in the tent for an event would be taken out and stored in a portion of the plaza we have dedicated to storage.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone in the audience care to speak about this?
I just have a question about sanitation.
Sure, come on up.
Come up.
I just have a question about sanitation. You're going to be having kids at...
Sir, I'm sorry, could you state your name?
I'm sorry, I'm Tom Ossenbach again. Just have a question about restroom facilities. Have you guys made any kind of idea about where you're going to be having people wash hands? That's it.
Yeah, and trash as well, too.
And so it's a good question. Trash is maintained for this area, will be maintained by our on-site personnel. There would be receptacles placed out. There are receptacles around the plaza now that are maintained on a daily basis by our plaza personnel. And for this location, because we don't have open to the public bathrooms in any of the retail places, we would bring out portable restroom facilities, whether it would be something, a standard porta-john or something a little bit nicer, like you see the trailers that come out for the events that could come out on a weekly basis and be removed and dealt with.
Just make sure that the hand sanitizer is full.
Noted.
Nothing more irritating than when it's empty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Micromanaging these applications, I gotta tell you.
Yeah. And I'm sorry if you've already stated this, but do you anticipate any vendors cooking there? No? So any food that's sold is prepared off-site and?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Anybody else in the audience? All right, very good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
I think that was the last public hearing, so we will stand adjourned and take about a 4-minute recess. Is that okay with everybody?
I don't have to go outside.
Yeah, and then reconvene in the back. Thank you all very much.
Go back in session, and let's see, yeah, number 1 we can do.
Okay, for seeker, this is a type 2 action, no further review.
Second.
All right, on the seeker motion, Andres has made a motion to declare it a type 2 action pursuant to seeker. Maria has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
For the application, I am going to make a motion to grant a variance. I'm going to do, since we spoke about the differences for the 3-foot versus 5-foot, I'm going to lean in favor of the 5 foot, so I'm going to grant a 5-foot variance for the east side for the shed. I didn't see any undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or any detriment from this. Existing shed right now is in poor shape, so I think a visual improvement would actually be, occurring with a new structure put there. The size difference is minimal. When you take a shed that's 8 by 10 versus, what was it, 9 by 8, I think, or 10 by 8 for the other one.
8 by 10, yeah.
So it's not much of a difference in terms of footprint.
Do we ask height?
We didn't, but no. But from the picture, it was not a
What's the height of it?
9.
9 foot. There we go, 9 foot shed height. Could the benefit have been achieved some other way? It's difficult in terms of the property in the back has kind of been built around where that shed is on the one side. It's an ideal location for it. Moving the shed to a different location, the applicant did talk about the grade of the property, and it made it difficult to put it on a different area in the back. And there's also an easement in the back that limits the amount of space that they can go into the back of the yard. The variance is not substantial. There is a shed there already, so we're talking about a difference of a few feet. I think the existing shed was about 85 square feet, and the new one would be about 120 square feet. And so now that we're moving it from 1.5 foot from the property line, 5 foot from the property line now, so we're actually becoming more in compliance. In terms of environmental impacts, there was none identified for the any kind of adverse impacts to the environment. And in this case, the new building is self-created, but the old structure that was there was not created by this applicant. It was there prior to them purchasing the property, and in a sense, they're setting a new one where the old one was. For that, I say we grant it.
I'll second.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done. Did you guys get all that? Kind of, yeah, really, thumbs up. All right, so we have a motion to approve a 5-foot variance and a second for the reasons stated by Andres. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All set?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see, can we go to, he left, number 2 left. 3 is left. Number 4. So Andres pointed something out, and I just want to make sure that it's, that we're clear on this. The statute section that I think is cited in the notice, let's see, 250-51F12. And we only have the one page here, but,
That's here.
This is 250.
1F12.
yeah.
250.
And I'm,
R2. That's just
right. Because we've talked about 12 feet all along, but the way this statute at least raises a question as to whether, what's a shed versus a storage building, because both terms are used. And,
Or I'll even go farther and say that the issue I raise is more the terminology of how the code's written, in the sense that we call out a number of accessory structures, but then specifically down below, we list out shed and not the others. And that's where I tend to say,
Right.
is it really concrete enough to say this is, and if it calls out shed specifically, our code doesn't really define shed versus accessory structures. No real definitions that I was able to find of one versus the other. Is this a storage building? If so, what height restrictions are on that? We have a garage, we have a door, there's 2 means of egress, there's electric back there. At what point is it not a shed? Is it a building? There's a lot of different factors that I bring in here, and this brings some question.
It's a little bit ambiguous, but I think that the gist of it all still lends itself back to, those descriptions down below under the sub-paragraphs relate back to the kind of the laundry list of items. Otherwise, if you didn't read it that way, then, only sheds would have a maximum up to 1% gross area, but then there'd be no restriction on any of the other structures.
Unless it's found elsewhere in the code. Okay, so that begs the question, if it's sheds alone, shed shall have a maximum height of 20 feet, you're correct, that would beg the question, well, what's the maximum height for a storage building? And is it up in section 6? Maximum building height requirements. A storage building certainly is a building. I don't know, but somewhere one should presume that there is a maximum height for a storage building. It may be 20 feet, or it may be 35 feet, or it may be something else. And I guess it's sort of an issue I would like to try to be as definitive as we can on it. And I don't, all due respect, I know you probably just encountered this issue a few minutes ago.
Function's all the same. A tool shed, a garden shed, a utility shed, or a storage building's all used for storage. Yeah, they should have called it that, the storage.
Yeah, there's no
Storage,
definition.
storage structure.
Right, and why list all four if you didn't have a difference in mind, I guess. But I don't know. In any event, having created this issue, I will also say that given the entire application, May and tonight, I'd be inclined to approve this. I'm not happy where we are. Plans did change, and I think we should have had more due diligence, but I'm really trying to focus on the specific issue of seeker. Of seeker, yes, thanks. Anyways, I'm going to make a motion that this is a type 2 action pursuant to seeker.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. So, trying to focus on that particular issue as if we had not seen this application before at all, and it was a 1.5 foot variance. Honestly, I think it would be approved. Probably, I don't want to speak for all you guys, but my guess is it would be unanimous and fairly quickly. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think so, even with opposition. But that's not what happened here. So I understand different perspectives on this. And I'm willing to talk about the merits of the application or table it to get, I mean, if we get to the point where we make a determination that it's not 20 feet, it's 35, then it's, and I'm not saying we would, but if we do, then obviously it renders the application moot because he would be within that height.
Aren't most of
And any
these,
storage structure would be,
aren't most of these building heights dealing with the main structure on a property? I mean, it seems to me that's what you're talking about in zones, in residential zones.
I agree, you look at 6, that would,
Maximum
one would
building
think.
height restrictions refers to the main structure, and the rest of it's dealing with accessory structures.
It's a good argument, you know, we're,
The trouble is, there's a number of arguments.
I think
Yeah.
that,
That's
right.
an ambiguity to it.
I think in the
ambiguous.
definition section, when they're talking about stories, I think they're dealing with the principal structure also. I don't know, I don't know that for sure, but maybe it's something I'll look at.
but it is, Andy, fair to say that historically, the town has applied the 20-foot height limit to sheds, to pole barns, any sort of accessory structure. Is that true?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
That's how we applied it.
Okay. So that does go to intent, I suppose, practice. Marie, you want to say something?
No, when this application came back in May, I thought that, I voted against it because I thought it was too large and too close, so I am not inclined to be supportive.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I don't want to cut off or mandate further conversation. I mean, if we're done talking, I'll make a motion.
I just want to say, I mean, basically, we try to customize these applications based on fact situations. Oftentimes, we have to try to envision what something looks like, even when we have the absolute dimensions. And it's awful tough to approve something that's a one-story building, 16 feet in height, and end up with a two-story building, 21 feet in height. It makes our job almost impossible. It's not fair to anybody, including the neighbors, regardless of how picayune or unpicayune they are.
Yeah.
It's just, it makes our job that much more difficult. You approve A and you get B, it makes what we do almost irrelevant.
Yeah, and I hear that, and I guess I've been doing this long enough to know that stuff happens on occasion, and we are where we are, and
It didn't seem like it was ill intent or on purpose.
no, I don't think so, and that's why I was saying earlier that you try to imagine if they were just this particular, or maybe even with part of the original application. I don't think it would have changed the way I voted in May if this were part of it. In fact, I would have voted in favor of it in May as well. But I also understand totally where Marie's coming from. It's certainly not an open and shut case, that's for sure. So. Well, Pete, is it, given the history of the interpretation by the town, and the result of your research tonight, and the off-the-cuff, I know, opinion you've rendered, does it serve any purpose to table this for, to see whether?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, then I won't make that motion. All right, then I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I would say, going through the factors, that there is not going to be a significant impact on the environment at all. It's a insubstantial variance, relatively speaking. We have granted the other variances, and again, I don't think adding this to it tips the scale. Although, I could certainly understand somebody saying that if we had this information back then, the result may have been different. I get that. It certainly is self-created. But in the overall balancing, I think it's a variance requested. Should be approved. So we have a motion to approve by me and a second. Any further discussion? All right, go ahead.
Can you wait just a second?
Of course.
I want to say something. I just wanted to look at the prior. Okay. I'm all set.
Okay, so no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Number 5.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Yeah, number 5 is, I'll make a motion to declare this an unlisted action, and also take the next step and declare a negative declaration.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now on the merits, I'll make a motion to approve. I'm okay with 2 years. Makes sense that people have to have some level of stability before they commit to certain things, and others may want to wait to see how it works out and then do it the next year. So, 2 years. We do have I don't know how often Wegmans does that. I don't even know if they did it last year at all, but they have in the past, the Eastway Wegmans, and yeah, I definitely can hear some of the ball games going on, and that's pretty far away, but you can hear it. So, but I think these guys will do a good job. They've done excellent work with the plaza. They'll do a good job to make sure that this is indeed a community-focused venue, and will respect the noise code, and if somebody doesn't live up to it, they won't be there again, and obviously if there are consistent problems, we'll have them back in. So, conditions of whoever uses it will have to obtain all necessary permits and licenses.
Insurance for the town.
Yeah.
Proof of insurance.
Proof of adequate liability insurance for its use. I'm sure they already have that. But we can get the proof for it. Inspection by the fire marshal to ensure compliance with 2015 International Fire Code, whatever that says. But we're gonna do that.
I think the hours we should also specify, because the application did say the hours differently from, we're calling weekdays Sunday through Thursday from, that went until, was it 8 p.m.? I don't remember what the start time was though. Until 8 p.m. and then the weekends, Friday, Saturday, it was until 10 p.m.
Okay, so Friday, Saturday night's gonna go to 10 p.m. Every other night of the week is gonna go to 8?
8 p.m.
Okay.
was what they clarified for us. And then all the events would be open to the community.
May 1st through October 31st. Okay.
Sanitation and
Yes, the bathrooms, adequate bathrooms and adequate trash receptacles. Management, yeah, good. Anything else?
Could I ask about signage?
yeah, I was just gonna mention that.
I think they mentioned wanting to put up some signage to advertise or identify the activities that may be going on there. My understanding of the code is that signage is basically intended to be limited to identification of a business. So if they wanted to put up signage, temporary signage associated with these events, that would require, they could do it through temporary permits, but they would be limited to 3 per calendar year, which I don't think is gonna,
And what's the duration of that?
up to a week.
If they put it under existing
Yeah,
sign structures, does that still fall under the same?
Yeah, but I don't know if that would
What's-
serve their
What's the
purpose.
sign gonna say?
They did say they'd use their existing space.
One of the reasons we wanted
Yeah.
to do an LED message board was so we could have variable messages and not have to come in for temporary permits, but we know we're not ready for that. But the signs would say movie night. You know, and what night movie night is on, and we envision them to be banners that
I
would
was
be
gonna say, this would
affixed to
almost be
the tent itself. Farmers market and craft on, you know, Wednesdays. So that type of banner would come up and come down, and we could come up with a proportionate size and placement of it. You know, I don't want to get into the business of having to apply for temporary permits every week. We
Yeah,
don't-
and no offense, we don't want you to do that either.
Right.
Well, we could obviously give them a variance from that requirement.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering about the notice
Advertised.
and the advertisement. It's general, but for outdoor community events, does that reasonably cover signage that would go along with such an event?
Advertising it.
I don't think so. We usually do signage separately, don't we, Pete? And we,
Usually do. Do you ever have you ever done a conditional use permit for, like, the incorporated a sign package?
Well, I can tell you that when we issue those temporary permits for an event, and they want to also put up signage temporarily associated with that event, we include it all together. We don't require them to get a separate, we don't separate the signage from the actual event. If that helps.
Well, So if this board would do the same thing, granting a conditional use permit would cover the signage. We could do it the same way that you guys do, if that's what you're saying.
It'd be nice if we could.
Yeah. I certainly, I see the need for the signage and I have no problem with it. But.
And this is something that would be
The notice issue is-
affixed to the tent canvas? So it wouldn't,
Yes.
tower above the canvas or,
No, picture 3 foot by 12 foot on two sides of the tent, hanging down with a clip.
so if we just said no larger than one on each side, 3 foot by 12 foot, we'd have it covered as
And
a
it's going to
temporary.
hang from the tent, it's
Yeah.
not going anywhere else, it's not going to be in the ground.
Yeah, so it's going to be part of the structure of the tent almost, or,
But not on all four sides, just two sides.
let's do it.
With two sides, facing Empire, facing the inside.
Facing Walmart, facing Empire.
I will add that to my motion to approve, the allowance of those two.
Did anyone second you yet?
I don't
I was
know.
waiting for that.
I can,
Sure, Marie's got it.
So my motion to approve as discussed and Marie second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thanks,
great.
guys.
Thank you. Have a good holiday.
Yeah, you as well.
What you got to say to people
Be
tonight?
safe out there.
Yeah, those are crappy. All right, anything,
You have to go back for number
9
2,
Horizon.
the porch.
Event Horizon.
Porch, yeah.
Yeah, it's Mike's.
You want to do, I mean, we talked about
Type 2.
tabling this, but you want me to go through the seeker now?
Do we have to table it if we condition it upon a survey? You know what I'm saying? Like, if it falls within our requirements and the survey meets and supports those findings that we had tonight, and it doesn't exceed that, could we make whatever decision based on that?
But then why are we requiring a survey?
To confirm it, I guess, in a sense? It's the same thing by saying proof of insurance later or
But
whatever
you're-
with the,
You're plugging in the figure after the
Yeah.
fact based on something. I understand where you're coming
yeah.
from, but
Because, I mean, we're working with numbers, and then if we didn't exceed that, we have numbers that were in the application thing, and if we say we aren't exceeding that, and the survey holds that true,
But how do you know that you're given the lowest amount of variance that's
true,
required?
true, okay, yep.
yeah, I think it makes sense to,
Just table?
yeah. Let's look at
Let's do
it. I
seeker
mean,
then.
generally, I don't see a problem with this application. I think it will add to the
No.
property, so.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we should get the actual figure based on a map.
Do we have to do seeker before tabling?
No.
Okay. So motion to table for the survey.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Should take 2 action.
Yeah.
So who made motion by?
To table, Mike.
And I second it. And that's something the town, I assume, will let them know that it's tabled pending a survey? Yep. We'll notify them, okay.
Number 3,
Number 3, I make a motion, this is a type 2 action pursuant to seeker requiring no further action.
Second.
further discussion on seeker? All those in favor?
Aye.
So I'm going to make a motion to approve this, a variance. Yes, it is substantial, yes, it is self-created, but on balance, I don't think there will be an undesirable change because all the changes will be pretty much only to the north side of the house. It's not going to affect the neighbors, and we've had a neighbor saying that. I don't even think you'll see it from the road because it'll be behind the house. So I don't think it will produce an undesirable change. Looks like the applicant has even been very diligent about how much space they truly need and are asking for what they truly need. And I don't think it'll have an adverse impact on the neighborhood or the environmental conditions, given that it's, again, going out to the north, not the south. So on balance, I can be supportive of approving this
I'll
variance.
second the motion.
Good motion.
And I'll comment even that the addition is going to have a lower physical appearance of the existing, because the roof lines will be lower for the addition compared to the existing structure. So I think
And I wonder if we should
That would show.
condition this to say that we approved this and it won't exceed,
won't exceed the existing height.
right,
Yeah.
existing height.
Yep.
Okay.
That's fine by me. All right, any further discussion? So a motion to approve by Marie and second by Andres. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Is that it? All right, so no further business, then we will stand adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
You too.
Good night.